Tonight you're talking about our electoral register towards a credible register is a topic for tonight's show. Of course, we all know that in recent times, what we've been discussing beyond everything else is a biometric registration exercise in Ghana. Everybody is interested in it, particularly the political parties, they say, who have all to gain or lose from this exercise come December, because really, it's all about power, isn't it? The Civic Forum Initiative, CFI, and the IDEG actually have been undertaking some activities to make sure that the register we get at the end of the day is as credible as can be. And so he actually has been monitoring some 30 selected constituencies around the 10 regions of Ghana. The selection of the constituencies was based on some factors which will get IDEG itself to explain to us and the reasons thereof. And of course, there's a preliminary report that has already been published. It's a 2-pager. I have it before me. I'm sure it's an executive summary of it. And it talks about a number of issues which we'll be getting into. Basically positive and negative development. But in terms of negative development, it cites, and I quote, intimidation and violent conduct of NDC and MPP agents and activists at some registration centers and consequent threats to law enforcement and overall peace. So we'll be talking about that and addressing it. And of course, from IDEG, a senior research fellow, Mr. Kwesi Jonah, is in the studio with us. Thank you for coming, sir. My own lecturer from the Political Science Department, that is. Great. And next to him, Mr. Kofi Potufi is Director of Elections at NDC. Thank you for coming, sir. And also from the far end, Mr. Martin Kosa is also Director of Elections with the MPP. So we'll have no newcomers to the show tonight. They're all veterans on the show. They've been here before. You can send your views on the matter, since I'm sure you have it, towards a credible register to 1760 by text across all mobile networks. And if you're on Facebook, it's facebook.com/multi-TV PM Express. I'll begin with Mr. Kwesi Jonah for obvious reasons. They put out this report. They have been doing the research. First question to you is 30 constituencies representative of the 230 that we have?
In terms of pure of research methods,
yeah,
it is very, very representative. You would have liked to cover even more constituencies, but you are funded by donors, right, and if the money is not enough, then what you do is you select a number of constituencies which possess those characteristics, on the basis of which you can say that, look, what I have selected is quite representative of the country. But 30 out of 230, I think that is in the US, the so-called opinion polls and so on and so forth, a population of 200 and something million.
They've gone past 300 now.
They base it on 2,000 something.
Yeah.
Provided the sample was scientifically gathered, you get
and it's representative enough.
Yes.
It's good enough. So really, can you summarize for us what this whole initiative is about?
First of all, IDEG has been doing this kind of exercise over the past elections. You know, I remember 2008, they also observed the registration exercise. This time around, because the biometric voter registration exercise was completely new to this country, there was even greater reason to observe the process. Why do we observe voter registration? The reason why we observe voter registration exercises is not very different from the reason why the EC itself conducts registration of voters. You want to have a voters register which has integrity and can therefore promote the cause of free, fair, peaceful elections. Okay, so for the same reason, the observer wants to make sure that the process, as it has been conducted by the EC, has followed those principles which would end in the attainment of the very objective for which the EC is compiling the register. So basically, the reasons why we observe voter registration is not very different from the reasons why any democracy wants to have a clean register that has integrity.
Okay, great. I'll stay with you for obvious reasons. I want us to lay a good foundation for the discussion, both for our viewers and also for the representatives of the political parties. So I'm staying with you on this, on the research, and asking again, what are the factors? How did you select the 30 constituencies? From which regions did you find them? And what was the basis for choosing them and believing that those would be representative of the total population?
If you don't have money and you have to select a small sample, then the reasons for selecting them must be sufficiently sound to convince the ordinary person. So we looked at the characteristics of the constituency and asked ourselves, where is trouble likely to erupt? And normally, within the stronghold of each of the major parties, people in the minority who want to register have problems. Okay, intimidation and so on and so forth. So we decided, therefore, that in the Volta region, which is the stronghold, and the northern regions stronghold, and the Ashanti region and other regions, you definitely have to select some constituencies. They must be within the 13. Okay. So but the other factor was a constituency which politically and electorally is very different from the surrounding constituencies. So such a Dumasi in Ashanti, Sawase in Ashanti, all the surrounding regions are voting MPP. But these constituencies, so if you happen to be an enclave within a stronghold of a party, we need to watch. And then we also look at the results of the last election, where were the results so very close that each party would feel that with a little bit of effort, I can capture this seat. And then, unfortunately for us, because of gender sensitivity, we looked at those constituencies where there were female MPs and several other factors.
But you also looked at population size.
Yes, the size of especially it's not just population size, but the number of registered voters. If it's a big, that's why how come Wija came into the
But I want to do with one area. Flashpoints was mentioned. And violence is at the core of all the discussions that we're having. How did you choose these flashpoint centers?
Fortunately for us, every election year, the EC and the National Election Security Task Force compile a list because the public are not aware, but we are aware of flashpoints. Places, they take so many factors into consideration. So we have, for example, for 2008, we do have the list of flashpoints. So you can on your own use some indicators, but the job is done for you by the EC and the National Election Security Task Force.
And the final question to you before I bring our dear politicians into the picture is to ask you for a summary of the positives and negatives that you found.
Well, on the contrary to what very many people thought, oh, this is going to go wrong, people are not going to register and so on and so forth. The enthusiasm of the people, especially within the first phase, wonderful. People surged, you know, to the extent, if you remember the media reports, people were fighting in the beginning, but by the third phase, they had almost finished everybody. So in the first phase, people were struggling, scrambling to get registered. Getting to the end, the stations were struggling to get people to register. This is very, very good. So the people were very, very enthusiastic. This is a very good point. The other good point is that at each registration center, they themselves realized that because of the surge of people to register, it is better to give consideration to people with disability, pregnant women, nursing mothers, and other people, disadvantaged people. And so some police stations, some registration centers, they had 2 queues. One for those categories of people, so that they would deal with those people first and go. There was some understanding. The other thing which the public was not aware of is that even though initially there was some misunderstanding between the polling agents of NDC and the NPP, those were the only 2 parties that put up polling agents. Even though initially there was some misunderstanding, as the exercise progressed, considerable understanding came and they were able to work together. That is how come the violent incidents that people were reporting initially went down. So very many positive aspects. Let me mention one thing that may not be here. People thought that because of equipment breakdown, we will not be able to make the target. But if you check the figures as they came out, we have by now exceeded the 12.5 million people, which means that in spite of the equipment breakdown, the EC did a fairly good job in getting the people registered. So these were very good signs. Unfortunately, some misunderstanding between not only the agents, but there was a time when I think an NPP vice chairman of the area, of the electoral area, and they met and then they started quarreling. Okay, so these little and then inadequate education initially, so that people did not know exactly where it was that they had to go and register. And then sometimes also people claim that the public education was not enough. But with hindsight, if you look at the rate at which people registered, you begin to wonder whether this criticism was valid or not. We have exceeded the target. So these were negative. But the important thing to bear in mind is that, look, this was a biometric voter registration exercise. So anytime we talk of a negative, the first question to ask yourself is this negative essentially connected to the fact that the exercise was biometric?
Okay.
And you realize that most of them, they would have happened whether it was manual or biometric registration.
Okay.
So let us not attribute to biometric registration some of the negatives that we observed.
I'll get your conclusion on the whole exercise at some point, but let me go to Kofi right now and ask him what his general overview of this report is. I'm sure you've read it. I can see a copy before you. What do you make of the findings of the Civic Forum Initiative?
Well, thank you very much. I suppose the report covers a lot of the areas as we witnessed during the registration. The observations are clear. It's a national effort that we're all putting together so our nation can rise, our nation can stand the test of time. And I think for us as a country, we have done well in getting the BVR underway and succeed. There may have been problems, I mean, as they have identified and mentioned. But I suppose the understanding is there that we want to register to vote.
Okay.
And it's a prerequisite if you want to vote in this country.
Sure.
And so everybody was anxious to register. The fact that it was new to this country, it was experimental, and there were fears, all kinds of fears about people going to scan their fingers and they'll catch all kinds of diseases, cancer, and so on.
I heard that one. There was one specifically targeted at males.
Can you imagine? Yes, you know. But we've been able to go through, and there's still some anxieties around about people who have not been covered. Because if you go to some areas across the country, out of the 10 days, equipment broke down for 7 days, and so on. Yes.
Okay.
Very seriously.
So those are some of the outstanding issues.
Yes, so these are some of the outstanding issues.
Okay.
And people want to be covered.
Okay.
And I believe that both sides of the coin will agree. The EC and the political parties will agree that, look, let's cover everybody who is qualified to register and get the person to vote in December.
Martin, I'll take your initial comments as well.
Yes, successful process. The EC must be congratulated. The issue of the numbers and advertisement. Yes, we've gotten the numbers, and if you juxtapose that with the equipment breakdown, you are unable to say how the negative impact had been. You have a situation where if people had not registered that much, in the last days, you wouldn't have recorded such a low patronage. You have places, even in Accra, that were recording single-digit numbers. What I think is the issue is that, yes, people trooped to centers. First day, there was a problem with advertisement. It's not just about the general information to people, but as to the movement plan. You have a situation where people did not clearly understand how that was going to be. So you have an oversubscription to certain polling stations, recording very huge numbers. That brought too much pressure on the equipment, and that itself resulted in the frequent breakdowns. Again, the training of some of the EC personnel themselves in handling the equipment wasn't too good, also contributed. The EC itself also was about quite cautious about the security of data. So the arrangement was that equipment break down anywhere, bring them to the center, Accra, for repair. So take a scenario where in Hamile, you have an equipment breakdown, it has to be brought to Accra, take the days of travel back and from. So you didn't have enough backup on strategically positioned for easy deployment. All of those things created a lot of problems. Moving on, I think what we have to do is, polling stations that have been oversubscribed, you have huge numbers. On election day, you're not going to have the luxury of taking equipment, come and replace. Let's split such centers into appreciable numbers so people can vote with ease. There is no confusion, and then the machines do not fail us on that day.
Okay.
We also need to check perhaps where these machines came from, so that on election day we don't find ourselves, wanting.
So what do you make of the this report as put out by the Civic Forum Initiative?
Yes, you see a number of positives and negatives.
We'll get into the details, but I just want a general overview.
Generally, it's
if you're
okay.
able to do it in a minute.
I hold in hand another one here by Kodeo. If we just suppose make some analysis, you think, yes, they captured the real issues and they've put it as they are. It's a good piece of work. If you look at the methodology, highly accepted within the research environment, and the findings are okay. I mean, I have no cause to put up any.
So that being the case, my next question will come after I've read this portion. It says, and I'm quoting, "It is important to note that the majority of these negative developments are not due to the adoption of the biometric technology, but to human conduct. It would therefore be unfair to assess the success of the BVR on the basis of ordinary human failing of our politicians." Mr. Jonah, I mean, people have been talking about our politicians in this quite a bit. And here's a report saying that human conduct, and again, says that it is not on the basis of a failing of our politicians. How do you put that side by side against the negative development, one, which was violent conduct of NDC and NPP agents and activists at some registration centers? Because really, many people were pointing fingers at these people and saying that they perhaps were the cause of all the noise that was generated at the start.
People will point fingers at them because the other parties, they don't have the capacity to. No, election time, they don't put up agents. Registration time, they are not able to. These are the only two parties that are in the position to put up agents. So you cannot go and blame PPP or PNC because they never present agents at this center. That is why, how come they are the ones who get blamed?
But between these two parties themselves, you also fly a few on complimentary ways at each other.
Yes, no, I gave you the story of one chairman, one vice chairman.
That's right.
They just met, they were not part of the team, but they were going around inspecting, and then they ended up quarreling. So the point is this, that the import of that statement is that this is the first time in the electoral history of this country that we are doing biometric voter registration. Therefore, let us be very careful. If there have been acts of violence at Ododudu or wherever, don't blame it, the way the media report. Hey, if you are not careful, you attribute everything that has happened to biometric voter registration. It is important. Equipment breakdown, fine. Cameras that are producing very blurred pictures, fine. It's due to biometric. A handheld scanner that has broken down, a laminator that is not working, those are directly related to biometric. But the other things, people quarreling, two-party agents challenging an applicant and delaying just because somebody has come, his face looks like a Malian, or those things should not be attributed. That's the point. That there were so many things that happened at these registration centers which cannot be attributed to. Indeed, the point he made about equipment that broke down, they had to be sent all the way to Accra. Even these cases, some of them they were able to fix within a relatively short time, and the process. This is how come they were able to register so many people. So the import of this particular statement is that many things happened at the registration centers, but please, for heaven's sake, don't attribute everything that happened to biometric voter registration. If two politicians or two-party agents quarrel and hold up the process, it is not because it's biometric. It is because they are human beings who simply cannot agree. That's the import of that statement.
Let me start a question from the other side this time and begin with you, Martin. My question is really, so BVR, is it really gone? What are your expectations of the EC? I mean, the mopping up exercise and all of that. How do you expect it to be done? How do we choose and pick places where these things should happen? In this report, as I read it, I found that there was a place that talked about, great, I found it. The EC should not allow itself to be pushed into a wholesale extension of the 40-day registration period, but should rather consider very carefully limited extension with key stakeholders for centers that experience extensive days of no registration due to equipment breakdown. I'm sure many people begin to ask, what is extensive breakdown? Is it how many days will amount to extensive? And all of those questions may arise. What is the view of the NPP on this?
You see, if you ask me, who do we think must have been left out in this whole process? The numbers have clearly shown. We are hitting nearly 13 million. Realistically, the EC itself seems to have been going beyond their target.
12.5.
If you look at the problems that came up with equipment breakdown, yes, I can recollect in Quantanov, there is a polling station where out of the 10 days, they only work for 2 days. If you come to Krobodumasi, same, 8 days, no work. But in all of this, the police stations themselves are not too distant. So people manage out of the different phases to get themselves registered. And that is how come, in anticipation of the quantum of breakdown that we were told, it should have shown in the numbers in the last days. And I keep making the point that there are places that I took the trouble to go through the daily printouts given to us by the AC. You record single digits on the last day. If people had not been registered that much, you expect some kind of rush,
so to speak.
It looks like the AC seems to have covered almost everywhere. Yes, I agree. In an extreme case where you need to even do an extension, you may have to do some selective, because out of the exported data from the district to the central database, they capture all those, the number of equipment used, the number of days worked, and all of that. So the EC itself has a clear idea how many centers did not. But I think that there is really no need for it. Okay, we just have to pick extension
anywhere
at all. We are now going to have to deal with the real difficult aspects of it. The process of deduplication. That is why we are going to have to clean the data. My last visit to the EC, there were some numbers in excess of about 800,000 who had been wrongly coded. Okay?
What does that mean?
Where they did, for example, the split, the EC introduced that system so that where you have two in the urban big cities, to ease down the pressure, you create more than one station, so it deals with the numbers. And so you have near your polling station A and B. In getting this correctly, people mix up the codes. A is tend to be 1, B is maybe captured as 2. There are instances where a police station in Accra ended up having a code in Bolgatanga, so on and so forth. Now the EC is going to have to sort all of this out, clean it, and make sure. Otherwise, what happens is that if I have been given a wrong code in a particular area, my data does not get into the system, yet I've been issued a card.
Okay.
You have to do all of these, fetch out double registrations. Many of the double registrations that are coming up, it's not as if people are registering with different names or different data. One person gets registered, or his data appears about 4 or 5 times, and it's the same name, same age, same address, everything. The EC is engaged in investigating all of these things to establish the real people who attempted to do double.
So for you, those are the issues.
Those are the issues. And I'm saying that, look, we need to get this register at least some 90 days or so before the election. The process is so tedious. If we are not careful, go through this, come to exhibition, final register before we go, we may not have time. And that whole essence of adding technology to improve the electoral process would be defeated. So let us begin to look seriously at what we have and not worry ourselves about this, because I'm not sure we are going to get any numbers anyway.
We're discussing the electoral register and saying we're working towards a credible register and looking at how that will happen. And of course, using the Civic Forum Initiative's findings as the basis for a lot of discussion that we are having. Let me come to Kofi and ask him, really, with regard to the mopping up exercise, I gather from what Martin says that he's not entirely against it, because he thinks that based on what the EC will find, it will show in certain places that perhaps there may be the need, and it's a may. But for him, the larger picture is really the register itself and putting it in shape. 90 days at the minimum before the elections, if I summarize your view well. What is the position of the NDC on this matter?
Well, I must have said this earlier, that every Ghanaian qualified to be registered to vote necessarily must be registered.
Okay.
And if, for example, we have been in discussion with the EC at the constituencies, in the regions, and at the headquarters, and we've given them copious details of registration centers that did not perform on certain number of days. And in the cluster, you know, if you recognize that the equipment has to move from one station to the other in a cluster, and they were unable to do that because the equipment was not just available, that must have sent others from, for example, the Baptist Church Registration Center in West Legon into Kisema to go and register. They've completely migrated from the Yawasu West Wagon constituency into Okaikwe North constituency. You see what I'm saying? There are others who were hoping that, no, I will still register in Baptist. And at the end of the day, Baptist has a very low registration number and there was no crisis. You may not cover that one. But if you go to the islands, where they could not move the equipment, the journey by boat wasn't possible, and people really have not been captured, then we need to capture them. These ones must be considered very, very carefully. We must not set a hard and fast rule that, no, we've struck 12 million, 30 million, so that's the end. But if you study the figures that are coming out, in some areas, if you look at 2010 registration as against 2012, the expectation is that the registered figures will go up. But in some areas, they've dropped largely. And I'm sure, as he talked about sorting out, double registration challenges and so on, some figures will really drop further in some areas. But for Christ's sake, those who have been left out, that the EC and the political parties will identify have not registered. Because you see, unlike the manual system, where you can go and double register, if you try it, you'll be caught. There are other Ghanaians who, for example, have traveled, were not at their polling stations during the registration. They arrived when the equipment moved from their registration centers. They have proof that they have traveled, they have their air tickets, they have their passports. They must be captured. You see what I'm saying? So the EC carefully, we've done this before in this country. In 2000 we did it, in 2004 we did it, in the 2008 registration it was done. And the advantage of the BVR is that it's a continuous process in terms of registration. That's what we should cherish. That people who attain 18.
But that's not what we were told it was going to be. We're told that 40 fixed days, 10 each in a cluster. They were on this particular program, on this platform from the Electoral Commission. They explained it to me. What they told me was that it's for 40 days. There will be 4 places in each cluster. 10 days, 10 days, 10 days move, and it is done. And then Dr. Kwadwo Afari-Gyan actually was on record as having said at the beginning that there will be no extension. And I think that the extension has even come up for consideration purely based on the logistical challenges that were faced.
Clearly, that's good.
But not the exercise in progress, as you said, where somebody turns 18 before December and has to come and register.
I'm saying that this BVR should build a capacity as a country that we should put in place such a system for the future.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? But for now, we should identify the clusters, the polling stations that for technical reasons were unable. Period.
And so you think it is important for us to have this mopping up exercise?
Yes, it is important.
All right.
We don't have to leave anybody out.
Okay.
So long as the political parties,
Everybody anyway.
so long as the political parties, the EC, have identified that they have good reason to do a mopping up here, we should do it.
Okay. All right. So we already have a point of departure between the two gentlemen over there. Where one thinks that it may not be that necessary, one thinks it's absolutely necessary. Mr. Jonah, what do you think?
What I think is that a registration exercise under present circumstances cannot be open-ended. You cannot just open it indefinitely. That's one thing.
Under the present circumstances.
Yes, because we haven't yet moved on to the continuous registration that he is. Even when we start continuous registration, you have to stop before an election, at some point before the election. Second point, even though some selective extension may be considered, it must be evidence-based. The fact that equipment broke down is not good enough reason to extend. There are very many places where equipment did break down, but people were able to register later to the extent that they were not even getting anybody. And so, if there's going to be limited extension, it must be based on hard evidence. For me, the evidence will be as the registration process got to a close. Were people coming in their numbers to register, or were the numbers going down from day to day? Remember, there were so many registration centers that would sit down all day, nobody would come.
But what about Kofi's point that even if the numbers were dropping, so to speak, that somebody has evidence that he was not available and could not actually take advantage of that right that is due him, that perhaps he should be allowed on the basis of his ticket and his passport and etc. to register. What do you make of that point?
I believe that point, the ECA already has arrangement for that. Anybody who can genuinely prove that throughout the period of the registration exercise, I was undergoing medical treatment or had traveled outside, this is my passport, these are the visas, and so on and so forth. Anybody.
The ECA has actually said so?
They do have, no, they do have the arrangement.
They do
yes,
have.
they
I
do
see.
have the arrangement.
Okay.
So, but I'm very worried that they're not making this known.
Because perhaps they don't want a mad rush where people will come for all manner of reasons.
They do have, but open-ended registration exercise that you continue extending and extending is simply not on.
Okay.
It will disrupt the electoral calendar itself, and also, if you are not careful and you continue to extend and extend, it will be open to abuse. Let me tell you that because multiple registration has been considerably scaled back because of biometric technology, people are now pushing minors, aliens, and so on and so forth. So one door has closed, they are opening the others. And that is why you should be very, very, very careful about simply extending and extending. If there is evidence that people really needed to register but could not get it, you should examine the evidence very rigorously and very, very scientifically.
Very rigorously and very, very scientifically is what we say that we should have. So, I mean, we have our first point of disagreement, and I don't want us to overstretch that. I think your points are made quite clearly. I mean, between the two of them, that it's quite clear. One thing that the extension may not be necessary. Another thing that the extension is absolutely important for us to deal with it. But there's one area that I want us to deal with before we go, talking about this violent conduct of political party and all of that. And we know that at some point it was really a topical matter in this country, and we were dealing with it quite extensively. Are you worried that it will still be an issue if we have an extension, Martin? Would it be an issue? Did you have such intimidation? Was there such political violence? Because you have been told severally, police officers, etc., on this show says that, yes, there were pockets of violence, but that is no basis to say that the whole BVI exercise was fraught with such violence.
It was quite peaceful.
Yeah, so if that is the case, and you do agree to that, would you be worried if there's any mopping up exercise that there will still be this form of acrimony and violence between the two parties?
Yes, clearly. And yeah, the reason is this. If you look here, we set up a system at the NPP headquarters to receive daily complaints, information, what have you. And so almost everywhere that lost a day of registration because of equipment breakdown, brutalities, what have you, is recorded here. Okay. Now, if you look, I think that, like Doc said, or Mr. Jonas said in the opening, we have a clear idea where these flashpoints are. And the earlier we begin to do something about it, the better. Extension or no extension, we have an election to go into in December. And I think that, yes, there are laws governing registration and elections. But the existence of those laws is not enough guarantee that we as political parties will play by them. And that is why you have law enforcement agencies to put their foot down and deal decisively. It does not matter whether it's NPP or whoever. Because our continuing failure to do that, for me, threatens to slow down the gains or democratic growth that we've chalked as a country. And I'm very, very worried that we don't get there. So I think that clearly we have to take issues of security quite seriously. The way they even get reported also creates all kinds of... And why do we have to fight at registration? If you look at the kind of reports that came, well, one may want to say that if this is registration, then what are we in for during elections? So I think that, yes, it's a major concern. I cannot rule it out, even in the case of an extension. If that is done, the stakes still gets higher and higher. And that could come in all kinds of implications.
Kofi, so really, you want us to have the extension. It looks like, Mr. Jonah, I think you think that there may be some form of extension.
No, I'm saying that there is a good reason to extend.
From what you have taken up on the ground, will it happen?
The fact that there was equipment breakdown, even for 3 days, does not mean you should extend. You can extend only if there was evidence that because of the equipment breakdown, a lot of people who wanted to register did not get the opportunity to register. But if the figures were dwindling all the time, there's no basis. You find it difficult.
Have you
to
picked
prove
up
to
any
anybody.
feelers, so to speak, of what the EC may do? To
I
extend
suspect very strongly. I suspect
Yes.
very strongly that there may be limited extension for particular areas, but it will be based on very, very rigorous examination of the facts on the ground.
Okay, Kofi, let me find out from you again. I mean, I don't want to spend too much time also talking about the extension bit. You stated your position quite clearly on that, and we can proceed. But as between the parties again, and all this claim of violence that happened and all, some have even called that there should be prosecutions. We haven't seen prosecutions. I don't know if it's happening because a lot of these things happen and the media doesn't cover it. So we may think that it's just not going on, because the police have assured that they are taking care of people. They are going to do all those places. They've identified people. They'll put them before the law courts and all. Are you sure that we've put this clash behind us? Because the major theater is December, and none of us wants any of the things that we saw at the beginning in December. We've done elections in recent past, and we've done it well. There will always be a shaky here or there, but it's gone on smoothly. Can you assure viewers that there won't be any such thing between your party and the NPP in the main, and also what you've gathered based on whether people are being checked and prosecuted for all the wrongdoings that we had?
Well, thank you. I suppose that prosecuting people or prosecutions are a deterrent.
Okay.
And also they create sanity in the society.
Right.
That's why the regulations guiding registration stipulate that for agents at the registration centers, if you find an unqualified registrant coming to register, you fill a challenge form. And the registration review tribunal deals with it after the registration.
Okay.
So there will be peace.
Okay.
You know, but the political parties, in our discussion with the EC, we said that in previous registration exercise, we recognize that you go to a registration center and the RO will tell you there's no challenge form. Meanwhile, there are, people coming to register that you need to, and it creates a lot of problems. Where there are no challenge forms, then people tend to take the law into their own hands. Because without the forms, you can't challenge.
Okay.
So some of these things, we should overcome them when the EC improves on her performance in that direction. And so if there's an extension for good reason, like Kwesi says, then the EC should make sure that the equipment works, laminators are available, scanners are working. We observed that some of the scanners, and many of them for that matter, were not working in the open sun. You have to give them some shade. And I guess that, I don't know what he thinks, I guess that the manufacturers manufactured those equipment with the European weather in mind. So you have to take it off the sun, give it some shade, and it starts operating. Okay. Those were experiences that we went through during the period. And those things created anxieties amongst people who wanted to register. You see what I'm saying? So now that we've gone through these ones, if for good reason there's going to be a mopping up, we should build our experience into ensuring that security prevails and sanity prevails. As a people, we must progress. We must make real progress. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Right.
There's a likelihood, like Kwesi said, of minors being rushed to go and register.
And foreigners.
We should avoid it. We should avoid it.
How do we do it?
That is if parties will sincerely avoid it.
That's well, we have.
Because my question was, how do we do it?
In some particular parts,
Yes.
the country was so widespread, and agents who dared say we won't register these people because we don't think they are eligible. People are crossing certain borders were attacked, assaulted. The agents themselves. Here is not even party against party, party against registration officials, and I think that it's so shameful. But my fear is that it may blow out of hand and may mar the beauty of this exercise if you don't take caution. I'll go by what Doctor said, that let's take hardcore evidence on the need to do. Otherwise, we may defeat the purpose.
Poor location of registration centers and lack of contingency plans for relocation was cited. I mean, what happens to those centers in December? Because many people, where you register is where you vote.
On voting day, we may not encounter these problems. Look at the situation of some registration centers. They were located near some Pentecostal churches that pray so many times a week. even during the day.
Right.
And the registration was simply impossible.
Okay.
I believe that on voting day, regardless, this kind of thing may not happen. People will respect that today is voting day, and so let us go and pray. Somewhere else. Somewhere else.
Right.
And other places, you know, the rainy season had started, and the place was so very open that unless you rush the equipment to safety as soon as the rain started, you could damage some of the equipment. So voting day is very dry. December is very, very dry, and these things may not happen. But some of the places were really not suitable.
Discussing how to arrive as a credible register for election 2012 and beyond, because don't forget that once we've gone biometric, until some very great scientific discovery comes our way, we'll be dealing with a BVR for quite some time to come. Let me begin this segment with you, Kofi, and ask you. So really, do you have any concerns about how the way in which the media handle matters involving electoral issues?
Well, a lot of concern, because you see, the media has been supportive, but you will agree that some of the reports were rather negative. They heightened the tension, you see what I'm saying, and created panic and fear amongst people. They created a lot of anxiety, you know, and particularly where there's a wrong by one party, and the reports are blaming the party to the core. You see what I'm saying? And they are not balanced. We've seen several examples of it, you know, and there's some issues that came in the media that were not necessary. You see what I'm saying? When one political activist says, we're going to fight you, come, we'll fight you, and the media heightens it, the community rises to that challenge. And the result was unpalatable. I suppose that issues like that should be taken out of the media, because it's a real threat to the community. You get what I'm saying?
So you're saying that the media should be guided by a sense of what is good for the general temperature of the state.
Yes.
That where certain things are not that important at all costs, kind of report these at all costs, but you realize that you rather raise tensions, escalate matters and all of that.
Yes.
You are supposed to exercise some good sense and judgment.
Yes.
And keep it out. That's your view.
Reportage that will stimulate growth, development in our electoral process. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because if you report wrongly, you create tension. It leads to all kinds of undesired.
Some will tell you that it's not a wrong report. So that's what I have seen. I saw two people fighting, and basically it's a factual report of events on the ground. How do you respond to that? Perhaps I should get Martin's view on this one. Really, what are the things that the media are supposed to be considering
I don't
in
think
choosing
that,
what is good and what is not?
Yes, that is editorial discretion. I mean, you know what is newsworthy. That the point is not to ask the media to gloss over obvious things that were happening. But following the media, at a point you get the impression that it's as if the media is selective in what they want to report. Like I said, we set up a center to receive all manner of complaints. If it's about brutalities, they were happening in quite a number of places. But you tune into the radio, you read newspapers every day, it is focused on one particular issue. Sometimes the issues that come in get too exaggerated. Okay, you hear something on radio and you follow up and you realize that it's not, you know, as has been reported. So they need to be a bit measured, okay, and get some discretion there, what it is. For example, it's not all that happens that you may want to report it the way it is. It has obvious implications. Some of them, we have issues that could just unnecessarily raise the political tension, depending on what they were. And I just don't want to repeat some of them on this platform. And so the media will have
So you are showing us how to exercise discretion.
Absolutely. So
I think
clearly, I'm sure they know best. They should just let professionalism reign and sometimes take their own emotions and interests out. And they will do the better job.
All right. So, Jonah?
I think the Ghanaian media has a real difficulty in identifying the particular philosophy on the basis of which it should play its role in the society. They ask themselves, as media houses, should we mirror the society? In other words, if the society is rotten, we should show that it is rotten, or should we mold the society?
Okay.
Now, I think the media should mold the society. In other words, even if things are not so good, the media should play its role in such a fashion that things will become better. And this means exercising judgment, being balanced. Now, you go to one registration center, MPP man slaps NDC man. It is only one center in the first place. in this, how many 5,900 other centers, they are hugging each other.
Right.
But because of that particular, you should be balanced. Where MPP man or NDC man has slapped somebody, you should also show us areas where they are cooperating very well.
Right.
And because they have not...
There's a bad news makes news.
That's right. Because they have not identified a particular philosophy, whether they should mirror or mold the society, they are not able to do this balancing act, which then gives the impression that everything is so bad. But it's not, things are not so bad.
Interesting. Let's take some messages coming in now. Edward Mieza, we commend IDEC for the political check on the EC, which will provide us a credible biometric register towards the election. The EC must correct all the mistakes and make the exercise clean. Irresistible Nathaniel Boache, I believe if the National Identification Authority and the Statistical Service did their work very well, they would have informed the EC to plan well. The two main parties have also adopted the plan of cutting down voters in opposition strongholds, and in my opinion, I think this is political genocide. Ghanaians have a way of dealing with matters that we're talking about in terms of the use of genocide. Anyway, Rick Don Mensa, what we want to know now is when are they paying workers who they contracted for the exercise? The success of the exercise as they are praising the EC. The success, no, he's saying he's linking he's linking it to the biometrics. He says the success of the exercise as they are praising the EC is because of these young men and women who were contracted for the exercise. The media had no idea what these workers went through. At the beginning of the exercise, they didn't even know the amount they were going to be paid, even though the amount was rumored. It was during the exercise that they got to know the amount they were going to be paid, and it was far less than what was in the grapevine. For instance, 53 days, approximately 3 months working, they were contracted. Data entry clerks are going to be paid 650 Ghana cedis. Does this amount, is this commensurate with the work that they did, who risked their lives, were insulted, etc.? That's a very long message, but I actually read all of it for you, Rick. Gideon Otre Darko says, yes, the biometric exercise was successfully completed, but the question is, when is the EC paid allowances due the registration officials? Oh, wow, that's another one for us. I'm watching Kusikweku. I think our security should be fair and up to the task without any political favors. Richard Amma says, I guess it is time for the EC to act like the US in terms of voting. Okay. Ayel Gum Sylvester says the two leading parties are those to make our democracy. To ensure violence-free elections, they have to behave well. Isaac Kantagere in WA says, God bless the NDC government for providing the EC with enough money to provide us with a clean register, which will prevent some polling stations from recording 130% voter turnout. Okay, that is tongue in cheek. Kwesi Abrayeboa says, my major concern is that measures must be put in place such that next time the exercise will be free from violence. Don't you and your panelists think that this is an important issue? Yes. Avoiding violence is an important issue. Ajwa from Ashale-Boche says, I've registered, but I don't have my card. The EC officials there told us that they were short of lamination rubbers, and that they were laminating rubbers, and that they will call us back for our cards when it is done. They took our contacts, and up to now, we have not heard anything from them. What is the EC going to do about this? This is Ajwa from Ashale-Boche. I see.
People contributed to buy.
No, can we get that point for purpose of our viewers? Is there places? Yes.
In the last 5 days of the fourth phase,
yes,
there was a general shortage in the Western, Greater Accra, and I think Eastern regions, Volta, and so people had to provide their own.
Really?
Oh, yes.
People went to the registration centers with their own laminators.
Yes.
Some registration
centers
bought A4 paper
to supply to the commission.
to give to
But the issue of
to-
laminates were quite widespread. Too many people are still holding their cards. But
But
the
this
commission
is a very urgent. This is something that they should work on very
the
quickly.
commission has to.
They really have to. We have to run out of here. I'll give a minute each to you to just, basically what you make towards a credible register. What's your view on the matter? How can we get it? Let's begin with you, Martin.
Yes, I think that so far we have the data, there are management processes. That is what is going to lead to the actual credible register. Yes, the process was to stop people who are not eligible. Somewhat, somehow, some people may have gone through. There is still the opportunity of exhibition, at which point you can object. Let's all help together to make the register credible and to serve as the purpose for which that we are spending so much money, in excess of 250 million Ghana cedis to do.
Kofi.
Well, thank you very much. I suppose that it's a good beginning, and we are on our way to making it as a country. We should all just help to build a credible register. We should discourage people who are not qualified from registering or insisting that they are registered.
Right.
Much as we are political parties whose interest in getting our supporters registered is very high, we should just make sure that they register when they are qualified. Well, if you are not qualified and you register, the law will have to deal with you when you are caught.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
But it's good. I mean, we should
So far,
clean
so
it.
good.
We should, get it to work.
All right. The idea basically is to get it to work. Mr. Jonah.
I think we should have very realistic expectations of the biometric voter register. There are some things that biometric voter registration can do.
Okay.
There are other things it cannot do. If you register more than once, you'll be caught. But if you are a minor and your parents or your party push you to register, the machine will not be able to tell whether you are a minor or not.
Okay.
In the same way, if you're an Ivorian or a Burkinabe or a Malian, the machine will not be able to tell your nationality.
The machine does not detect nationality.
So we should have a very, very realistic expectation of the register that is coming. And when the register finally does come out, I would plead that if it is possible, the EC should procure the verification equipment and use the exhibition of the register to test in view of the very many problems that we had with the equipment, to test the verification equipment.
Okay, that's a very useful point that you raised there. We have to bring the discussion to a close towards a credible register. That's what we've been discussing tonight. And in the studio with us have been, from the far end of the table, Martin Kosa, Director of Elections of the NPP. In the middle, Kofi Portufi, Director of Elections, NDC. And on the near side to me, Kwesi Jonah, Senior Research Fellow, IDEG, and also a lecturer of political science, University of Ghana, Legon. I close by saying that, well, he and his colleagues taught us that politics is the art of the possible. Think about it.